Okay guys, so what I want to cover is just a series of principles that I've been trying to really understand in my head in application of building muscle. These are things that apply to fat loss as well. They apply to longevity primarily, but these are things to achieve your muscle building goals, and you'll find they transfer in other areas of your life too. Business, relationships. I always say that the gym is a metaphor for life. So what you can do inside the gym, you can do outside of the gym. And to be honest, that's kind of my story. When I gained the confidence to transform my body when I was younger, that gave me the confidence to start learning how to do sales at the gym I was at, and to start learning new things that eventually started, moving my life forward. So who here has experienced that? Your physical goals were a platform, as a kind of a stepping stone to achieving success in other areas of your life. You guys notice that? It's huge. It's awesome. It's a great place to start. So, when we're filming this, it's right before the new year. So I thought this would be a great time to kind of talk about these principles and kind of just be a little reflective on the things that will help you make next year your best year. So when it comes down to muscle building, principle number one is that muscle growth demands training disadvantages. So we've talked about this throughout the camp. Are you guys all understanding that? Your body does not want to build muscle. It wants to make things as easy as possible. A neat little way to think about this, Brandon gave me this. He talked about this on the weekend about the good devil and the bad devil. And that when you're training, think about this. You've always got a little guy on one shoulder, another guy on the other shoulder. One's like a little angel who's looking out for you, who wants to help you. And then there's another guy who's the devil who wants to set you back. He wants to hurt you. He wants to harm you. He doesn't have your best interests at heart. So when you're training, that little angel, that good guy on that one side of your shoulder is telling you to control it, slow it down, own it, make this harder. Get something out of this workout. While the bad guy, the little devil on the other side, he's basically telling you, get out of this. Get out of here at all costs. You don't want to be down here. This hurts too much. Stop. Don't go there. And he's the guy holding you back. He's the guy who's telling you, he's basically limiting your ability to progress. Does that make sense? So you got to always be aware that you're always kind of have that good guy and bad guy telling you to, do it this way and do it that way. And you want to always be attentive to the good guy who's telling you to focus on keeping the workout in a disadvantaged state. Let's go quickly through who here can give me an example of making the workout harder without increasing the load, without adding more reps.
Just fighting the flex on the way down.
Fighting the flex on the way down. Okay, great. So that means contracting the muscle as you're lowering it. Awesome. How else can we make the workout hard? Chris?
Any point, like a deadlift when you're lowering it, if you were to tell me to stop at any point, I should be able to stop on the dime and control the motion.
Right. Again, this is all in context for building muscle, guys.
On moves like the lat pull down that we were doing over there, position so we could add more range of motion, so we can get more
Great.
position and more flex in the lats.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
Go slower.
Go slower. That's the simplest one. If you're a trainers at home watching, one of the best words you can use with your clients is say slow down. That's a great one. Yep.
Putting yourself in a mechanical disadvantage.
Yes. What does that mean?
So, for example, what you said with the leg press, instead of leaning back, you could lean forward when you're contracting, get it that much shorter.
Which shortens the quad at the top, right? Awesome. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to principle number two. Principle number two is control is the currency of muscle growth. Control is the currency of muscle growth. If you can't control it, you can't challenge it. And that's why we did the accommodated squats today, the appropriate squats today. Because at the bottom, we want to challenge the quads. So we set you up to do that. Does that make sense? So if you're not in control, how can you challenge it? If you're thinking about balance, if you're thinking about survival, if you're thinking about just getting up, if you're just thinking about moving the thing so it doesn't crush you, can you challenge it? Your body doesn't care about challenging the muscle. It's thinking about surviving. So control is the currency of muscle growth. That's a big one. Next one, number 3. Learn how to drive the car before you start pushing it hard. So this kind of is an application to program design. A lot of guys, and hey, listen, don't get me wrong, having a great program is awesome. Having a great program is the equivalent of having a world-class sports car. You better believe you're going to get something out of that sports car, but wouldn't you say you have to learn how to drive it first? So it doesn't mean much to have a great program if you don't know how to drive it. Does that make sense? So most people out there are teaching how to just basically pedal to the metal, pedal to the metal. But why don't we learn how to use the steering wheel first? Let's first learn how this car works. Where's the brake? Just in case I need a brake. Think that would be a good thing to know how to use? Yeah. So before we start getting all excited about these new programs you're going to grab this year to start off your goals, I need to find a better program. Remember, there's instructions on how to use that program. It's just like buying a new car. Before you start driving that car, you got to learn how to drive it. Does that make sense? You got to learn that there's not just a gas pedal. Most people say, oh, new program, awesome, going to get huge this year. Pedal to the metal. Well, there's other things you need to use to get the most of that program. Make sense? Number 4, modify external variables to improve the internal scenarios. Who here knows what that means based on what we've been talking about today? Does that make sense? Not yet? So external variables, what are external variables? Reps, number of sets, the load, those kind of things, your range of motion, what it looks like from the outside looking, if somebody's watching you, what does it look like? Those are the external things. So modify those things to improve the internal scenarios. What's the internal scenarios, internal variables? That's, are you actually feeling it? Are you in control? Are you getting a good pump? Are you able to isolate that muscle? Does that make sense? So we want to make sure we modify all those external things. So just because now you've got this great car, you got this new program, and it tells you to do X amount of sets, or tells you to go all the way down to the ground, well, you have to come back and ask yourself, well, hang on a second, well, what's my goal? My goal is to build muscle, and when I'm going really low and he's telling me to go low, maybe I should modify that. A lot of people don't have that kind of frame of reference, or they don't have the courage to kind of make their own decisions. They don't have the courage to change a program a little bit because they don't know that, they're allowed to. You guys are aware that you're allowed to modify programs? It's okay to do that. You don't have to follow the program exactly the way it's written. All right, great. Another big one, number 5. This is to isolate tension by setting pillars. Do you guys know what this means? So this is a huge one. So let's look at tricep extensions, for example. So if you want to get the most out of your triceps doing a dumbbell tricep extension, where's the pillar? From the shoulder to the elbow. Yeah. You guys see that at home? That's the pillar. If we want, what's the function of the triceps? One of them. To flex the elbow and to extend the shoulder. Now if we want to isolate the tricep at the elbow, we need to set this pillar. And once the pillar's set, do pillars move? Pillars don't move. So when you're trying to isolate a muscle, you want to first figure out what's the function of the muscle I'm training. If it's the triceps, that's great. Then you want to look at what you need to set to work around that pillar. And now you kind of just visualize these things as pillars and you work around the pillar. But what's happening if I start going like this? Am I isolating the tricep as much? No, and I've got some lats coming in there. I got some shoulders helping me out, which is great if you want to add more weight. But if the goal is just to isolate the triceps, you want to set pillars. So you're always looking for what's the pillar that needs to be set. When you're doing a squat, do you want your trunk to move? Do we want to be doing this? You see a lot of guys on squatting like this, or deadlifting like this. What's the pillar on a deadlift or a squat? The trunk. The trunk is a pillar. Do pillars have multiple sides?
Yep.
Right, so that's another thing. So you have to realize that this pillar has a front and it has a back. So when you're going down, everyone says, just tighten, brace yourself isn't actually a bad term, to be honest. Some people say tighten up your core. Most people don't know that the core has a backside as well. If people understand that, that's a great cue, but most people think tighten up your core, now they're like this. Well, my core's tight, but remember your core is all of this. So that's why I like the term pillar, because pillar is a great analogy. You can push on a pillar from multiple angles and it's not going anywhere. So when you're setting those pillars, you're tight on both sides. So when you're doing those tricep extensions, you're tense on your biceps and your tricep. That's a pillar. When you're doing your squats, when you're doing your deadlifts, that pillar, you're not just tense here, you're tense back here too. So you've got a pillar set around the entire thing. Does that make sense? So that's a whole nother conversation, but setting pillars is really, really important. Okay, we've talked about this over and over, but always ask yourself, this is number 6, what is your goal? What is the goal of this exercise? Is the goal of this exercise to get as many reps possible? If so, then you're just going to have to do what you got to do to achieve that goal. Or is your goal of this exercise to feel something, to shorten the muscle, break it down, to actually challenge the tissue, right? So you always have to ask yourself, what is the goal of this exercise? What am I trying to get out of it? And once you can answer that question, that will dictate how you do it. Does anybody have any questions so far? Any personal examples you guys want to ask about? It's all good? All right, good. We talked a bit about this one. I believe that no one, like some of these have kind of overlapping things. They kind of say the same thing, but in a different way. But I believe you should never, ever, ever get injured in the gym. Is that a bold thing to say?
Oh,
No. No. Well, how come why are so many people getting injured?
they're using external cues instead of internal cues. Yeah, they're building. They're not using proper technique and form. They're ego lifting or that sort of stuff. Putting their stuff at shearing forces on their joints, and
it all comes back to risk-benefit ratio. It all comes down to, for professional athletes, they'll tell you you're full of shit, Vince. This is my meal ticket. This is how I get paid. I have to perform. I have to push my body. Okay, fair enough. However, they're going to pay a price for that benefit, that temporary benefit that allows them to perform at that level. The body's not forgiving. So just if that's how if that's what you need to do, be aware of it. But there's a lot of guys out there. Anybody gone to the Mr. Olympia or the Arnold Classic? Everybody see how many meatheads there are there? Hardly able to walk straight, walking like this. But they're huge. They can move a lot of weight. Are they functional? Are they moving properly? Why are they moving like this? It's not natural. So they've lost the ability to move properly. When you've lost the ability to move properly, eventually you're not going to be able to do anything. And are you able to build muscle when you can't do anything? No, so you got to ask yourself, is the path I'm on taking me to where I want to be when I'm 40, when I'm 50? What path am I going down? A lot of people start on a certain path and it starts taking them in a direction they never intended. They went to the gym and they just wanted to start gaining some muscle. They want to look better. Next thing you know, they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff that had nothing to do with their original goal. But somebody that they may look up to is telling you, well, this is what I did. And so you just have to always come back to your original plan.
Vince, I'll tell you, man, from your question, it's all about distractions, right? There's always something going on. The TVs are going on.
Yes.
There's people grunting. There's there's girls, there's guys, whatever's going on. And actually, that's how I met Wade the first time, right? I couldn't stand the fact that this guy was so focused. I actually went up to him at a bar and said, "Hey, man, why don't you talk to more people? Why you gotta be such an asshole?"
New Brunswick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a lot?
He tried to talk to me in the gym.
Yeah.
When it was gym time.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
Forget it.
Don't talk to me. Yeah.
Don't talk to me. I'll talk to you
Business.
after. I'm here to do my thing.
Yeah, you're in the office.
He's at the juice bar after he's finished his workout, and he looked like a prisoner.
Right.
He looked like a prisoner that had his meal and he was protecting it.
Well, that's the challenge, right? Most people buy the social membership, right? They don't get the gym membership.
Totally.
Like, how much is it? A discount on the social membership? Seriously,
Yeah.
right? You go to the gym these days, and sometimes it looks like a circus.
Totally.
Other guys are, especially where I'm from in Florida, all the guys are matching from socks to watches to hats. It's ridiculous. But it's a bit of look at me. But hey, that might be their goal, so they have different goals than you. So yeah, it's hard to find a gym that's kind of conducive to what your goals are. But sometimes you got to create it yourself. There's no reason you can't be the first guy that basically says, "Hey, shut up and train," or "Leave me alone." I train with Ben sometimes in Florida, and you watch him, how he handles people around him. It's hilarious. I mean, he won't even acknowledge you, first of all. and even if you get it, like, "No, right now, man, hey, you get the fuck out of here." Go. Can't you tell him, like, I'm freaking in the office right now? So yeah, you have to you have to visualize that too on the way over to the gym. You know, having a cell phone out and checking your Facebook updates. You know, going to the gym with music on. There's already a lot of distractions. Next one is what gets measured gets managed. Who here has heard that just for the first time? Really? This is like one of the driving forces of my life. And I kind of learned this one through business actually. When I was trying to kind of scale up my website traffic, I was trying to get more visitors. I hired a consulting company, and one of the first things they asked me is, where's your traffic coming from right now? I don't know, I think like bodybuilding.com, or I write for a couple articles. And the first thing the guy said to me was, you're flying blind. You've got zero intelligence. We really can't help you. Because he had nothing to manage. There was no measurements that were being taken. So this is like very powerful in business, but applies equally to your training goals. And I like to simplify it right down to what a guy named Vern Hernish says in a book. What's his book? The Rockefeller Habits. It's called Find Your Critical Number. A critical number is a variable that you want to see improve, and it's the only thing you're focused on. So it could be your deadlift. It could be your waist measurement. It could be your shoulder ratio. It could be the weight on the scale. It can be anything. But it's one number that you obsess about. It's the only number you're worried about. When I was getting ready for my show, the only number Ben and I worried about was my weight. Every week I had to email him my weight. What's your weight? What's your weight? That's it. That's all he wanted to know. Another competition, all I focused on was my waistline. What's your waist measurement? What's your waist measurement? What's your waist measurement? Every single week, that was the critical number. And as long as that critical number was moving in the right direction, everything was fine. We didn't worry about anything else. And guess what we achieved at the end of that goal? We achieved that critical number. So really it comes down to just focusing on that number one critical number that's important to you. And that can apply to all areas of your life. Moving into the new year, one of the best things you can do for yourself is just set one critical number in each area of your life. You know, maybe it's to read more. What's that critical number? Maybe start off with 15 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day. First thing you do when you wake up before you get out of bed, read, meditate, pray, do whichever you need to do to get your head in the right spot. That may be your critical number. For someone who's been doing this for a while, my father, I know he reads like an hour every morning. He's been doing it for over 30 years. He meditates, he prays, he reads. He's been doing this habit forever. He doesn't need motivation anymore. It's a repetition thing. It's repetition, right? He doesn't need someone to motivate him to do it. Like, Luch, how do you do that? I don't know. I've been doing it for 30 years. It all started off with just a simple habit, repetition over time. So apply that idea to all areas of your life. Maybe you want to improve your relationship with your spouse. The average American talks to their spouse 11 minutes a day. 11 minutes a day. It's insane. You wonder why there's such a high divorce rate and stuff. So maybe your relationship isn't so good. Hey, this might sound weird saying to your spouse, but we need to set aside half hour a day to talk to each other. Isn't that weird to have an appointment with your spouse? Well, to be honest, it'd probably be a really good idea, because now you're moving in a direction that you weren't achieving before. So you can set critical numbers in even personal areas of your life. This obviously applies to finances too. How much you save each month, how much you save, whatever number that's important to you. Is that all making sense? This concept's really helped me out. Just, even with business, I've got so many moving parts. It's sometimes so hard to focus. I just have to focus on, okay, this week, this next quarter, all we're focusing on Facebook fans. We need to get 5,000 Facebook fans a day. That's the goal. And if we don't achieve that goal, if we're not there by next week, we have to figure out why. This is what I do with all of my employees. Every Monday, we have something called Goal Setting Review Day. So every Monday for 15 minutes, I meet each person on the phone or Skype or on email, and they were giving a goal the previous week to achieve. They report to me what their result was, and if they didn't achieve it, we have to figure out why. Why didn't you spend 30 minutes with your wife? Why didn't you save that amount of money? Why didn't you read for 15 minutes? What happened? And now the accountability comes down. Now you start to problem solve.
okay, well, you know, I went to bed too late. You know what? We just we committed to too many things, which we're so tired. We just want to go to bed at night. And you start figuring out now, how do I start modifying my life? That's why that comes down to what gets measured gets managed. If you have something to measure, you have something to manage. And to build on that, what gets managed gets multiplied. So if you can manage something, now you can multiply that result in maybe other areas of your life, or you can do it again. Wade, you competed a number of times. I bet you dialed in your nutrition, you dialed in your training to know what you need to do to multiply the same result for the second show, for the third show, right? Mm-hmm. But what if you weren't tracking anything? I know guys who get shredded, but they can't do it a second or third time. And like, well, didn't you write down everything you did? Actually, most guys do that, but it's a kind of an extreme, it's an example, right? But if you don't know, let's say you get shredded. Absolutely, I'm going to give you guys a personal example for myself, and then we'll move on to the next point. When Ben prepared me for my pro qualifier 2 years ago, there's a carb up process that's very, very detailed. And he started me off by having 3 days before the show, he had me eat 4 ounces of protein and 8 ounces of carbs every 3 hours. And we did that for 3 days. I competed, I got the pictures, we looked at them, I'm like, I look like Skinny Vinny again. I look flat, I don't look full, what the heck happened? So I competed 2 weeks later. He told me to follow the same thing, but just change the meal frequency. Go to eating that same thing every 2 hours. Guess what? I look better. What gets measured gets managed. But I still didn't look as full as I thought I could look. I still felt a little flat. So when I competed a couple months later, we went up to 10 ounces of carbs and 4 ounces of protein, and we did that every 2 hours. And that's when I looked my best. But I wouldn't have been able to make those changes if I wasn't measuring what I'd done prior. Like if you came to me and said, got a show coming up, you know, I want to look better, I really can't help you. Because I don't know what you did to get there, what did you do before. We're guessing, to be honest. If anyone's going to help you and say this is what you should do, they're just, you know, blowing smoke out of their ass. I'll be honest, I don't know what to do. I need more information, you know what I'm saying? So it's tricky if you don't have anything. Does that make sense? Yep. That's a big, big one. The next thing I want to talk about, this is another principle, one of my favorites, and this is kind of just like a really practical one in the state of the era we live in right now. 1 meal at a time. 1 meal at a time is the mindset I took towards my competition. And it was the most helpful, the simplest mindset ever because it broke my day down into the most important thing. What's the most important thing right now? The meal right in front of me. You know, and all I did was I just chunked so let me back up for a second. The reason this was practical is because I was chunking my goal into smaller increments, right? So if you have a 16-week goal, people find out, oh my God, 16 weeks, I gotta lose 30 pounds. So how do we chunk that down into smaller parts? I gotta follow this diet, you know, I gotta do it every day. Well, let's not worry about that. Let's first worry about today. How many meals are you gonna eat today? 4, 5? Well, let's worry about meal 1. All I want you to focus on is meal 1. Nail meal 1. When you're done meal 1, come back and talk to me and we'll talk about meal 2. Got meal 2? Okay, now let's think about meal 3. And we just break the goals down like that. And we focus on making 1 meal perfect at a time. 1 workout perfect at a time. 1 rep perfect at a time. 1 rest period perfect at a time. And when you take your goals like that, they become a lot less daunting and you're able to get more out of it. This is the same concept. If you were to travel across the country, how are you going to do it? 1 state at a time. If you're going to clean your house, you got a ton of boxes in one section of the house and they got to go to all the different rooms. How do you do it? 1 room at a time. You don't think about, oh my God, this is going to be, oh my God. We chunk our goals up. Well, let's worry about that room today, that room tomorrow, this state today, that state tomorrow, and you chunk it up. A lot of people ask me, Vince, how do you do everything you do? I just took 1 step at a time. And that's how you get there. How do you eat an elephant? With 1 bite at a time, right? So it's that mentality and staying focused. Who here's read the book, The One Thing? Have any of you guys read that book? The One Thing? You guys, okay, so you guys wouldn't remember this then. So there's a great definition of focus in that book. And a lot of people think that focus is being able to say yes once, but really it's being able to defend your yes with 1,000 no's. You guys like that? That's good, eh? Focus is the ability to defend your one yes with 1,000 no's. And this ties into that whole one thing at a time, because when you get focused on that one thing at a time, then you're able to say no to all the other distractions. So these are really powerful things that have just helped me practically. This kind of ties in, kind of the same way to say what we've been saying, but another big principle, and this really applies to, you know, guys who come to me and they say, I want to build muscle and lose fat, and they say it in the same breath. And they're kind of competing goals. And I always tell people to chase one rabbit at a time. All right? If you try and chase 2 rabbits at once, you'll catch neither. Right? So if you want to become significantly bigger, dedicate the next 6-12 months of the year just to build muscle. Put your entire heart into it. Put your entire mind, body, and soul into it. And put nothing into your life other than the focus of building muscle. And then once you've built up 20, 30, 40 pounds, then think about fat loss. But I get these guys who come to me and they're like, you know, I'm trying to build muscle, but how much cardio should I be doing? You know, should I be watching my carbs? You know, they're trying to do too many things at once. They're trying to multitask. And you know what happens when you multitask? The definition of multitasking is doing 2 things poorly at the same time. And that's what most people do. I'm trying to build muscle, I'm trying to lose fat. They spread themselves thin. They don't have any long-term vision. They don't chunk their goals. They don't realize that this month can build towards next month. And next month can build on to next month. Right? This is how huge companies are built. Do you think they just go to millions of dollars a year? No, they start off small. You know, they start off super small and they just start scaling up one month at a time. So you really have to kind of look at your life and break it into chunks. And I found that the more clear you can get on where you want to be down the road, the more peace it gives you on what you're doing right now. Does that make sense? Let's say you want to have an online business and you want to make $1 million a year, but you got to first create a product and it's going to take you 3 months. Well, knowing that that's where you want to be, let's say 10 years from now, now you don't have to be like, oh man, I got to get there so quick. I got to get there so quick. You can now put your time and energy into creating a great product. And when it's done, you know that step's been complete and it's been done well. And then you can move to phase 2. And then one step at a time, you start moving towards that goal. But that's how everybody has got where they got it. But everybody, you know, wants results yesterday. They see everybody doing what they, you know, everybody has this attitude of entitlement and, you know, I should have that now. I want that now. He's like me. I should, you know, I don't want to wait. I want results yesterday. So you really have to understand there's a process. You know, transformation is not an event. It's a journey. Does that make sense? All right. I think, you know, the last one, just to wrap it up, you know, a lot of times, you know, I've noticed people hearing me say some of these new things I'm saying, and they call me out and they say, Vince, sounds like you're being a pussy these days. Why don't you just get in there and move some weight, you know? Maybe. And I'm not saying that you're going to kind of pussyfoot around your goals and you're going to take it easy when you're in the gym. There's a degree. There's a time and place where you need to get in what I call the hurt box. And this is the last principle. If you want change in your life, you do need to be uncomfortable. Building muscle is not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. It's going to hurt. It's going to be uncomfortable. If you want to change any area in your life, it's going to be hard. If it's easy, there's something wrong. That's a good cue that you're not in a good place. As soon as you get to a place in your life where like, man, life's good right now. I'm in a good spot. You've fallen out of that state of being uncomfortable. And that's when you've stopped growing. If you're not growing, you're dying. This is so true. I used to just hear that and think, that sounds cute. But it's so true. If your business isn't growing, if your body's not growing, you're dying. And you have to quickly figure out why. Okay, so yeah, when it comes to change, whether it's your body, your life, your relationships, anything, there's going to be a state of discomfort. Change happens when you're not comfortable. You get out of that rocking chair. You challenge yourself. You get your body to experience something that hasn't experienced before. You break old habits. You break new ground. Does that make sense? So whenever I always, you know, one of my perspectives growing up in the home that I grew up in is that, you know, we were raised to believe that when there's tests in life, that those tests are designed to make you grow and mature. They're there for a reason. They're a good thing. Even if you don't understand them, if they don't make sense, if life doesn't seem fair, who are you to say life's not fair? You're lucky to even be here. You know what I'm saying? Your life's a gift. So you have to understand that when there's a test in my life, if there's a challenge, I try and look at it from a different perspective, and I try to figure out, why is this test in my life? What am I supposed to learn from this? How am I supposed to react? Because I believe that every test is meant for you to grow and mature. So if you're able to grow and mature, that test was there for a reason. Whether you understand it now or later or never, I truly believe that. And most of the tests that are going to come into your life are going to be painful. Right? People don't change if it's not painful. You know what I'm saying? Have you guys heard of, I'm just going to wrap up in like less than a minute here, but have any of you guys listened to Larry Winget? The Pitbull of Personal Development? Wade, you'd love this guy. You guys would all love him. Larry Winget, you guys got to listen to this guy. He's unbelievable, but he basically says, like, you know, when people come to him for advice and say, I want to change, he's like, no, you don't. Why do you want to change? Oh, that'd be nice. You know, I'd like to do that. No one changes unless they're not in a lot of pain. Unless it's uncomfortable and people want to get out of it, people don't change. So you really have to kind of figure out, why do you want to change? Or else you're never going to really have a driving motivation. You're going to coast. You're going to stay in that rocking chair. So you really need to figure out, what is bothering me right now? What do I not like about my life? What could be better? What's going to happen if I stay on this path? Am I going to have regrets? Am I going to be able to look back and be happy with the path I took? And if not, you're going to probably have to get on another path that's not as comfortable. So, you know, we know this from our running days. You know, we used to always talk, we used to always say, all right, guys, time to get in the hurt box. Because we know the hurt box is going to take you somewhere that you haven't been before. Does that all make sense? Good? All right, so those are some of the principles, no-nonsense principles, not just for training, but for life as well, for every aspect of your life. So I just want to thank you for listening, and I hope something there served you guys well. Thanks.
Thanks, man.